Hello, you multi-melon mastery mumblings. It's a bit of a psychedelic malt mention, that, but a big thank you to Ian Bruce for providing it. This is Ralphie Review 1041 Extras, in which I'm really concluding the final review in a series of auction-bought bottles that I've bought specifically to open. Not all the bottles I buy from auction are to be opened immediately. Some will be kept for a few years and for a special occasion. I don't tend to buy anything that I'm going to sell on these days or try and sell back at auction. Those days are gone now, they're past. The whisky investment side of auctions it's really coming full circle. I really think the heady days of wonderful old found bottles of some antiquity which were going for fantastic money, particularly of course the ever ubiquitous and overrated Macallans, they're just about struggling to hold their value, but we'll see how long that lasts. We're now in an age where the novelty's worn off. The fashion for whisky collecting is now reaching a certain point of rational maturity, where people are saying what really matters above all else is not having some big fancy for show collection which people could want to steal and is going to be so difficult to ensure, but to actually have what's called the stash, which is something that is a solid collection of about 50 or so bottles that you bought at yesteryear's prices, that you know the quality of, you're controlling the calibre of storage, and you have got them on hand to open in the future and enjoy. Because a bottle of whisky does not have an expiry date. It will last forever and ever. 3, 4, 5 generations, 10 generations or more, if really stored carefully. It's heading to that sort of culture now. You see it particularly in the US. But I reviewed this Isla Jura, an absolutely stunningly good whisky, and it made me think. What are the signs of a good whisky compared to a standard potable, palatable, average consumer style whisky? And we'll start with the basic product that's designed for the passive consumer, because you've got plenty of those bottlings out there gathering dust in the shelves in supermarkets and travel retail at the moment. I find that any time I pass through an airport, I tend to kind of put my head down and just slowly wander past the travel retail section and just look at all the ubiquitous and relatively pouring brands that are just stacked like soldiers on parade under lights that are far too bright. And they're designed basically to haul in the passing customer who's trapped in the airport because they're going from A to B, and hopefully they're going to pick up a bottle on the way under the illusion that in fact it's free of duty. So good luck to them with that illusion, because travel retail is actually increasingly a more expensive place to buy whisky than the high street. And they're not, even when they have their 1 litre bottles and they have their discounts a third off and at 50% off, and you're looking at the product and you're saying, do you know, I couldn't even bring myself. I would be bored to tears trying to wade through that litre bottle of caramel-loaded, chill-filtered banality. And I'm coming from the point of view, and I know it sounds terribly judgmental, but I am being judgmental. I can be, because I need to keep my defences up as a whisky enthusiast, and so do you. Don't be caught out when you see a standard version of a bottle and it's at a really good price, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, look, there's Johnny Walker Green Label. It used to be the best of the entire range. I'll just get a bottle. It's only £40, £42.99 a bottle. And you get home and eventually you pour a glass, and the whole thing is an absolute letdown, because I can assure you that the quality of Green Label has fallen dramatically over the last 10 years. If you are buying Green Label at all, get it at auction. It's not likely to be faked. There's plenty of volume of these bottles out there, but I mean, in my stash, I've got a few of the Pure Malt Green Labels from the 1990s, and that was the golden age. That was when that brand was at its very best. That's where it really earned its reputation, because it was a blended malt, occasionally called the Pure Malt. A term that's now kind of been discontinued, but you will see in auction houses. And the problem with a lot of modern contemporary whiskies is it's not that they're bad. It's just that once you've had the good stuff, and I'm talking about the really good stuff, you just find them so boring and pointless. Sure, you can, if you happen to have a glass of bland whiskey, Glenfiddich 12-year-old, once you've been round the peat monster circuit and a few sherry monsters and tasted some of the younger bottlings from Scotland's newer distilleries with their substance and character, like Kilkerran and like Lochlee and like Glenweavis, and then you go back to these standard ubiquitous brands, they come across as really quite boring. And there's a simple reason for this. They have been tailored for a passive consumer's market, and we've got to identify that we're no longer a passive consumer. We're a proactive, informed and educated customer. And the sort of person that's watching one of these videos from start to finish is most certainly that. The passive consumer is too busy watching fail logs and all the rest of it and sports commentary to be bothered, doing any sort of deep dive into the calibre of whiskies. So it's avoiding the ambient disappointment. That's a really good way of putting it. The ambient disappointing of a bottling where it looks like whiskey, it tastes like whiskey, but at the end of the glass, you feel you haven't actually had a decent whiskey. You've just had a brand experience. And this is kicking in with Clynelish 14-year-old now, as it loses its waxiness, because the producers have said, well, we've cleaned out the pipes. It really doesn't help when you get that sort of banal comments coming out through the media. And the traditional whiskey media, unfortunately, is so utterly repetitive and on side with the industry that it has very little to contribute to your education. So you're really looking to the geeks and the enthusiasts, whether it be the Reddit forum or the Discord forums or Facebook groups, or the videos, of course. So what separates a good whiskey from a bland whiskey? One is, let's start with the spirit. When the spirit is made in the stills, is it all computer controlled and designed to have maximum alcohol yield to make the cost of production as cheap as possible? When you get that situation, as I've mentioned in the last video briefly, the more alcohol you get from the yield of barley, the less flavour is delivered with the alcohol. It's a simple computational fact. And when you've got flavour missing because it's been sacrificed for a certain type of grain which contains more starch, which is then converted into sugars to create alcohol, you're not only missing the flavours of the grains, you're missing the sensations which accompany the flavours of the grains. So you're going to have a whiskey which is there's less sour notes, less bitter notes, less savoury notes, the less savoury grain notes. And this sort of, by its very circumstance, it kind of blands down the whiskey. It still looks like whiskey and it still tastes kind of like whiskey, but you're looking at that synthetic E150 derived colour and you're asking yourself, is it just my imagination, or the more caramel they use, the less flavour's actually in the liquor because it's getting less out of the cask? Yeah, I can assure you that is the case. Most of the time, not always. And you have a situation where, in order to have, if you don't have particularly good casks to mature your spirit, you really don't want the casks to have too much influence. And therefore, it's in your interests to actually keep using tired casks, which will do less to the whisky, but at least give you an age statement and more passive maturation as the spirit eventually finds its way into the wood in the staves that hasn't been previously accessed by previous content, previous fill. And by the way, it doesn't matter how influential a cask is in a whisky. If it's a bad cask, you get bad results. And therefore, if you have a bland cask, if there's anything going wrong, at least it will be kind of restricted. And also it tends to make particularly at a younger age, it tends to make the signature of the still that little bit brighter, because it's already been subdued because of the demand for increased yield. So what you have is a situation where costs are being cut in the actual raw practicality of producing the product. And then it's assumed that if required, that they can then spend the money that they should have spent in the original product to actually pay people to go out and kind of sell it, not on terms of its original quality, but on the identity and the signature of the brand itself. A really tough, a really, really hard sell, and you'll notice that successful brand ambassadors, when they're hosting whisky shows, they've just got a way of jollying people along while delivering an orthodox message in such a way that you don't actually feel patronised when you're gradually becoming less sober. That's the real skill of a brand ambassador. And I'm sure for many of you, you've been to the master classes where you've sat and you've waited and you've waited and then you've waited some more to actually get some relevant information specifically about the whisky, instead of just some more historical narrative about the authenticity of the distillery, equipment or something. Anything will do to keep the conversation rolling. I have not attended masterclasses for years. I don't buy tickets to masterclasses. I don't bother attending. I can't think of a single one in which I really learned anything, ever. And that's the way it goes. I'm sure that trend will continue. So, when we're looking at a good whisky, rather than a bland whisky, an okay whisky, which, when a push comes to shove, if we're given a bottle of a bland brand, what do? We top up with something more interesting and we start blending it up ourselves, and that's a very practical solution to a particular problem. But then it makes us think more about, well, what's the good stuff? Because to keep our interest, to keep our commitment as buyers of whisky and investors in whisky experiences, to keep it fresh and vital, we need to have good quality purchases at prices that don't come across as an absolute rip-off. And this is becoming a bit of a challenge these days, particularly with the economic situation in the UK. So what you're looking for is probably a smaller distillery where they're more transparent about their active cask policy. We know there's no point in going treasure hunting for Springbank. They're rare as hen's teeth, but you will find the younger ones at auction, and by the way, at pretty good prices. So you have a look at the independent bottlers, have a look at small distilleries that are at least 8 to 10 years old. So they're coming of age now, and they're no longer at the position where they're trying to sell you what looks like an overpriced, underaged, unready, rather raw product of pretty decent quality, but it doesn't exactly set the heather on fire, does it? So we've got to kind of give these young distilleries, these new distilleries, a little bit of time out, and then we'll come back to them when we see them growing up. We're looking for 46%. We're looking for unchill filtered. We're looking for natural colour. These are 3 vital components to indicate the quality of the whisky as being worth drinking and worth investing in as as a proper whisky connoisseur and customer. You need to see that. You need to see slightly stronger alcohol, that it's not been stripped of its flavour and texture by chill filtration. And also you want the honesty of delivery. If there's E150 in it, even a relatively small amount, you're getting a false reading as to the activity of maturation. So the 100% tactic of putting caramel colourant into whisky is to mislead the customer. There's no other reason. It's for misleading people. And this is why I'm so against it. In single malt whiskies. In blends, it's fine. Different market, different scene, not something I take much interest in, because a lot of blends are bland. And they're designed that way. It's the purpose. But we're talking single malts here. Single malts are priced at a premium, and that premium has got to be earned, not presumed. So what you've got to look at is distilleries that have already establishing the reputation for consistency in the quality of the experience of smell and taste. It's a simple equation. So look out for this year's online Scotch Whisky Awards 2024, which will be kicking off before too long, because the online Scotch Whisky Awards, that's oswa.co.uk, you'll find a link down in the description box below, is designed to be one of the primary democratic portals to help people know what's the best from the rest. It's as simple as that. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this. I wish you luck. I hope you don't buy bad whiskey. But if you've ever bought a bottle of bad whiskey, don't worry about it. I have. It's all part of the journey. But it's the experience of that which makes us far more critical of an industry which, unfortunately, is prepared to provide it. And things have been going very well for the industry in the last few years. They've been on a bit of a high, but I can tell you right now, it's not going to last. And the distilleries that are prepared for the future are the ones who are investing and returning investment into the authentic, original quality of product, which is where Scotch whisky made its reputation in the first place. It's as simple as that. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe, likey. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.